Welcome to the Unitarian Christian Alliance Podcast, Episode 21, The Three Blunders UCA Video, with guest Brandon Duke. I'm Mark Kane. This is the opening moment where I remind you what Unitarian Christians are, on the off chance this is the first UCA podcast you've ever heard. I'm going to take a play from the Chalcedonian Creed, which has been recently on my mind. I'm going to share some negatives. We all need more negatives in our lives, no?
It sets the boundaries. It establishes the borders.
Thanks, R.C. Sproul. Regarding our Messiah, we do not confuse being in the form of God with being God. Nor do we conflate being indwelt with the fullness of God with being God. Neither do we swap Son of God into God the Son. Nor do we call upon extra-biblical dual nature theories to resolve scriptural difficulties. Nor do we consider the son of something to be the same as the something he is the son of. Okay, this could drag on for a long time. On a positive note, we see in the Bible the presentation of one who is God. That one is the Father, and Jesus is someone other than that one God, the human Messiah. This one God is Jesus' God. One more negative. Neither do we believe or teach that our God has a God. Us Unitarian Christians hold scriptures in very high regard, significantly higher than we hold the creeds. Significantly. We simply don't find it credible that God needed Catholic bishops to fill in a 300-year-old theological hole. A hole, it seems, that was left there by the apostles. If you're new here and are puzzled, this podcast isn't the place where you'll find all the reasons behind this belief laid out. But there are many resources available online if your interest is piqued. If you did want to think about this more, and you'd prefer to simply hit a few more episodes of this podcast, may I suggest Episode 1, The Perilous Trinity Deep Dive. It will set the stage for why we're actually doing this. Then go right on to Episodes 2, 3, and 4. The interview with Hildy Chandler touches upon many of the underlying scriptural points. Again, it isn't a teaching episode on the Trinity or unity of God. It's an account of her dealing with the fallout of her son dropping a big non-Trinity bomb at their dining room table. It recounts her discoveries and some of the most poignant moments during her research. Those episodes will both help you understand us and help you appreciate how the truth of Scripture means the world to us. Do hang on until the end. We have an actual promo. A real promo, not like last episode's. A real 30-second UCA podcast promo that I put together on a whim, and well, it might find some use out there. I thought you'd probably enjoy it. Today we talk with Brandon Duke from Missouri. He's the human that runs and runs in the large hamster wheel whose turning energy powers the UCA video machinery. He's the voice of those videos and the producer. The recent video, The Three Blunders, is one he's especially pleased with. It's a terse, historical sketch of the development of the Trinity. And it's pretty cool. Most people have no idea what slowly transpired over those first hundreds of years. This video should help. I'm going to play just a bit of it today, because you might be driving and really want to see it, but you're sad you'll have to wait. And you will have to wait. Keep your attention on the road. The little taste today will hold you over until later. If you are a visiting Trinitarian, you may be skeptical of this idea that the Trinity developed. Totally get that. You've been told one thing, and why would you have thought to question it? Well, today we offer a chance to learn something new. Brandon and I discuss some of what it's like producing content. Then we talk about the Three Blunders video. It's a delightfully casual conversation. Brandon, I'm glad to have you here today.
Thanks, Mark, for having me. It's a pleasure. I'm a big fan of the podcast. I've listened to every episode, and some of them more than once. I feel like I know Hildy Chandler personally, even though we've never met.
Yeah.
She goes on my list of people that I want to hug when I find them.
Right. I can't wait till we finally have a UCA conference. There's going to be quite a few people who already know some of the guests. They've met them. They've experienced their life through the story that they told here on the podcast.
It's funny. I remember, I don't know, probably 6 months or more ago, Dale talking about wanting, hoping somebody would do that. And I'm so glad you did, because it's what comes through is that this is like a passion of yours, like the radio thing is.
Yeah.
And so then to take all those skills and all that and put it to this is just a sweet match.
Yeah.
So.
Like every time I do it and I listen back, I probably listen to my own episodes too much, but
well, it's not just you. I do that too. Go back and watch a video. I'm like, hey, that wasn't that bad. Like,
hey, yeah. I've settled on Wednesday morning for the podcast release because it gives me my morning commutes 2 days in a row, Monday and Tuesday, to actually play the episode while I'm in the car. And then I could just drive to work and listen to it and be like, oh, right there. Then I'll reach up, do a screenshot. Like at that moment, something was wrong. So Wednesday gives me the time to do that. Gives me the time to hear it back before I hit the final go button.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I should probably give myself one more time to sleep with mine too, to sleep on them.
Yeah, it helps. Of course, there's different kinds of content out there in the world. And, you and I were both working on content that can persist forever, technically.
Yeah.
And for that reason, it weighs so much heavier. You're like, oh, I really want to think about this.
Yeah.
If I was doing a daily show like, hey, what's going on in Unitarian world today?
Right.
Oh, Ravi Zacharias, blah, blah, blah. Like we could, that's not Unitarian, but, we could have those kinds of conversations, and I would be so much less concerned about the amount of time I spent editing it.
Oh, yeah. No, I feel that, like, just one little mistake or one argument that's wrong, the wrong term or something, and somebody someday hears it, and some poor Unitarian shares it with somebody and then gets blasted. I just don't want to set somebody up for failure.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the pressure is on. It makes it rewarding and difficult, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
But I am enjoying it, and I'll occasionally have to take weeks off because it is a time sink for sure.
Yeah.
But
I would say I can't imagine editing. It takes me, when I'm trying to put animations with, like, the scripts aren't too bad, right? To write a 2 or 3 minute script, mostly it's the cutting, it's the editing that's brutal.
Yeah.
But it's the animating just takes me forever. Like, I think if I was a middle manager, it would take me weeks to create a PowerPoint. I'm bad at it. So the videos I like when I do them, honestly. We farmed out some of the animation to other people, and they're fine. But like on the most recent one, the one about the 3 blunders, because it was farmed out, there are lots of notes that I would have, or lots of references that I would have put on the screen that the animator doesn't know, right? So whether it's references to scripture or to some historical book or something, it just doesn't get added. And so I saw that one of the comments to that was, hey, this looks good, but how come there's no references to anything? We're just having to trust you. And that's valid. And it's why I think doing this, 1 month at a time, I think I'm probably going to do most of them, of the animating, so that I can control that. And it's a manageable amount.
Yeah.
So.
Speaking of 1 month at a time, people may not be aware that that's the model we're going to be shooting for going forward. But in the past, like about a year ago, we had a set of them that came out about every week, I think. Is that about right?
Yeah, I was dropping them on Friday nights, and we had, 6 or 8 of them in the queue. And then we got to the end of them, and I was burnt out. And so was my wife. And she's like, okay, you have to slow down. It was also a bad time for work too, where I got really busy. So, and then I just basically, I was writing scripts, but I was setting them on the shelf for like, man, what was that, 6 or 8 months?
Yeah.
And then and Sean Finnegan, it was the most gentle cattle prod usage ever to encourage me to get back to making them again. He was very pastoral about it, but he's like, come on, let's go. So I'm really glad to be doing them again. It's meaningful to me to think, because all I'm doing is I'm trying to process what has happened to me over the past 3 or 4 years, right? Like, I didn't grow up, I was arguably a Unitarian. Probably my parents would have been Arian. But I mean, I didn't own it myself until just a few years ago. And I really owe it to William Lane Craig.
Really?
Who? Oh, yeah. So I don't know if you know my whole story, but so I came out of that old Armstrong thing, the Worldwide Church of God.
Okay, yeah.
Dad was a pastor. And then he was a pastor in the splinter groups after that thing broke up after Armstrong died.
Mm-hmm.
And so I watched all that as a teenager and got a belly full of organized religion and church politics and all of that. So I was thoroughly disengaged from wanting to be associated with church in any way. I wanted to believe very much in God. I've always wanted that, but I probably a lot of people that have been hurt by church, right? They become skeptics.
Yeah, yeah.
And so anyway, I spent a lot of time in my 20s kind of trying to dig out of that, build a belief in God, and then figure out, what kind of Christianity that should look like. And I was going through William Lane Craig's Sunday school class that he posts on he had an app at the time. So I drive like crazy for my job. Kind of sounds like you, or you're listening to podcasts all the time.
Yeah.
So I would just listen to those, and I got to the section on Chalcedon and the two natures theory, and I had never heard it before, like actually explain what it is. And I was so horrified that I thought, this is what other Christians think, is that Jesus is this two-natured, God man. Like, surely this isn't what other people believe, because I'd always been taught he was a man and not God. And so it led me to looking for the things. And I kid you not, I searched for Trinity in the Apple store, looking for other apps like the Reasonable Faith app.
Yeah.
And I found Dale's podcast.
Oh.
I found the Trinity's podcast, and I binge listened to, 200 or 300 episodes of those. And by the time I got done with that and reading Kegan Chandler's book and finding, Sean Finnegan's stuff on YouTube and all that, I was a Unitarian. And so my next step was, I didn't know any of these people. I was totally isolated. So I went to the Restoration Fellowship, that theology conference.
Oh, yeah.
And just signed up. Nobody knew me. I guess they let any weirdos show up at that thing. Anyway, and I walk up to Dale, who was just trying to get set up for his presentation, working with his projector. I said, "Hi, Dr. Tuggy. I'm Brandon Duke, and I'm a big fan." And he looked at me like, just to make sure I wasn't an axe murderer, some kind of theology stalker nerd, which I guess I was.
Yeah.
And I said, "Thanks a lot." And before I knew it, that same weekend, I got to listen into he and Kegan Chandler having discussions about the UCA, and I've been hooked on the vision of this thing ever since. So.
Oh, that's neat. We love having you helping us out and being a part of it. It's been fun. We love the videos. And it dawned on me last week, like, we're not promoting the videos in the podcast. And the
videos aren't promoting the podcast like they should be.
Yeah. Yeah, we should at least have a reference so that somebody's, the old kind of, hey, learn more.
Yeah.
So my idea is to have small segments with you, just talking about one of the videos. We might actually go back and touch upon some of the older ones.
Yeah.
We'll see. We may not cover them all. We may cover them all. I don't know. But there's some really good ones. Like the 3 Blunders is really quite well done.
Thanks. I like it.
Yeah, I think it'll be fun for somebody just to hear us chat about that video and then go hear it and kind of get an appreciation for, wow, what went into it, or why did we choose that?
Yeah.
In the UCA podcast, when I talk to podcasters themselves, like I've done Dustin Smith and Dan Weatherall and Paul Davenport from the Bible Feed podcast. When I talk to them, my goal is for people to understand who's doing that and why they're doing it, what's driving them.
Yeah.
For this podcast, that fits very well. So I was like, I need to get Brandon. We need to talk about the videos and then point people in the right direction so they can go check them out.
I love it. Not only does that sound like, hopefully it'll be helpful to people, but it'll be fun for us. So
yeah, it'll be good.
I'm already seeing that. I was watching as the announcement for the membership map came out, and watching people realizing, wait a minute, there's somebody in town here that I didn't know about. I mean, I saw that happen twice just in the Facebook feed.
Yeah.
And man, that's super exciting. And I can't imagine what that's going to be like, given years and time to really grow, how many people can be be helped by that, I'm just really encouraged by it. I'm excited for it.
Yeah, it's something about the map makes it way more real than the directory. We always had the directory listing.
Yeah.
I mean, we always had a means to do it, but visually, it's so much better because we're spatial beings. We think about things in terms of proximity, and the map does that trick.
Yeah, and I love zooming all the way out. I mean, obviously, I looked locally, and there's some folks locally for us too. But I love zooming out, and it's the whole map. I mean, I guess we need to get somebody in Antarctica.
Yeah,
but it's the whole planet. Once it starts being more representative of broader Unitarianism, it's just going to be chock full of folks for new Unitarians and for old Unitarians alike to find to associate with. So I am really excited about that, and I don't know how hopeful to be. I don't know if I should hope for 5 million members or 50,000 or what the number is, but I see people that are in the situation that I was in, where they're being really introduced to, the classical Trinity doctrine for the first time, classical Chalcedonian Christology. And a lot of them have the same reaction, which is, well, that's not my Bible. It's not what I really think, but okay. I've got this naive, perhaps, hope that when they get presented with another option, that they're going to say, yeah, that fits with my Bible way better. That makes more sense. And they won't maybe know how significant that is to other Christians, like what a big deal it is until later. And they'll have to say, well, okay, maybe it's a big deal for you, but I got to follow my Bible. So
yeah, I'm not waiting for 5 million people on there.
Not at first.
No, like just suppose you're imagining a home fellowship with 12 people, and you look around the room. It's like, okay, there are probably half of them who just wouldn't bother because they're just glad to have fellowship. They have a busy work. But there's a couple in each group who get it and would like, well, no, I'll do it. I'll put my name out there because if they reach me, they basically have reached all of us.
Yeah.
And so I don't know what the ratios will be, but it's going to be 1 to 100, 1 to 1,000. When you look at the numbers and then you think about how many really exist in the world, which we do have some estimates for because we do, there are millions of people who aren't strict Trinitarians, and that's just the reality, millions of us.
Yeah.
So, what is the ratio? I don't know. But as we plot more people on the map and you think like, well, if each one of those represents potentially or on average, maybe 50 people or 100 people, we have access through at least one step of redirection. Like you can find that one person who is an hour away and he can say, well, actually, there are 3 others who just never made it on the map. If you don't even make the initial connection to find somebody reasonably closer to connect to somebody, you'll probably miss out on those 20 or 50 or 100 people that are just behind the surface, behind that person's experience. Like, I belong to an organization that actually has about 100 churches in the United States. And each of those churches maybe, I don't know, average 30, 50, some people. That's actually a lot of people, and they're definitely not all on that map. But if somebody met me through the UCA and said, hey, Mark, let's talk about stuff, they would find out about these other people. So I don't have high hopes that every single person will sign up.
Sure.
But I hope that enough people who understand the vision do sign up and are available so that these folks like you connect and boom.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. One of the most recent episodes you've released is called The 3 Blunders. And that's the one I wanted to talk about today because I really liked it. I don't know. Where do you want to start with that?
Well, my hope is that when people watch that one, it gives them an appreciation of maybe some church history that they don't know already. I mean, I don't know how many people are familiar with, 2nd, 3rd, 4th century church history and some of the figures that we reference in there. But if you don't know who Justin Martyr is, you don't know who Origen is, and you don't know who the Cappadocian Fathers are, you're really missing out on the whole argument. You really don't know where the Trinity came from. And so hopefully the video is just an introduction to people to church history from the perspective of a Unitarian who sees what I think are 3 specific steps in theological, I call them mutations because I see them as so negative, but in the evolution of the Trinity from a Unitarian view that the apostles held to a Trinitarian view by 381 or a little later. Hopefully what it does is introduces people to that whole discussion and they can go, inform themselves and read up about it. And it'll just give them some pause as to whether the way that they read their Bible, the way that they've been taught, actually is the way that the authors intended it, or whether they're reading it through a filter of these historical developments.
Yeah, the narrative, we could call it, is that Everybody was Trinitarian from the start. It was only after so many years we're like, well, we better write this down because those heretics are really putting the pressure on us.
Yep. And dang Arius came in and messed up the Trinitarian party, with his heresy.
Yeah.
And the historians just know that's not the case. Arius was holding to one branch of subordinist theology, and Athanasius was holding to another branch of subordinationist theology. And out of that, ironically, came this thing that didn't look like what either one of them believed.
Yeah, it's remarkable to know that the majority of Christians for the longest time were subordinationists, which was not a co-equal, co-eternal Godhead model. And that's just completely brushed aside to tell the simple narrative. Everybody was a Trinitarian, and we just had to write it down around the year 300 and 400,
Yeah, this one bad presbyter, Arius, forced the church to do all this work, which, wasn't really necessary because we all really knew what was going on. It's just false. And, even the pro-Trinitarian historians can say, well, look, the language developed, the way we expressed it developed. It's like, okay, well, the language developed, the way you express it developed. How is that not a development in the ideas? And a more critical scholar will look at it and say there was absolutely a development in the ideas and the way that the church was figuring out how to reconcile what I would Dale Tuggy calls the logos theologians, guys like Origen and Justin Martyr, how to take their innovation of referring to Jesus as this eternal logos, or a created logos in Justin's view, how to square that with the idea that really there's only one God.
Yeah.
And, they had to work at it, and then it's such a mess. Like, I'm still working through R.P.C. Hanson's book on church history, and it's just it's a catastrophe. It reminds me of, anybody that's ever been through a church split or church dysfunction. It's that on steroids because it interacts with the Roman state, and you get emperors involved, and it's just a mess. So I've been really fortunate to benefit from some convenient, like concise works, not like the R.P.C. Hanson book, but some more easily accessed works like Kegan Chandler's book, The God of Jesus. And it's very helpful to see how that process developed. And I was hoping to put together a video that could help people with that. And it ended up being 6 minutes long instead of our normal 2 or 3, but it just wouldn't fit inside of a couple of minutes.
Has the length come up with people? Has it seemed to matter?
So I'd be interested to hear what other people think and get feedback. The reason that we started with 2 or 3 minute videos is there are a bunch of metrics in YouTube that say that a 2-minute video gets a watch through at a much higher rate than a 2-minute and 15-second video. Oh. Apparently 2 minutes is our attention span nowadays.
Oh man.
So, but having watched as we've released, I don't remember exactly how many of these, 10 or 12 now. It looks to me like people that are interested, they sit through it. So we may break our rule about YouTube's recommendation about video length because people that are interested in this, they may want a little more meat. And there's lots of great other Unitarian resources out there, the long form resources, including the podcast. We'll try and make them as pithy and as quick as we can, but I guess we won't shy away from it in the future because this last video, the 3 Blunders video, is one of the best as far as number of views and people sharing it. It's the best we've ever had. So wow. I appreciate the people that are out there that are sharing it and helping reach other people with it.
That's cool. Give me an idea about the reach that these videos are having.
So the native reach right now is a lot smaller than I'd like it to be. There's kind of this core UCA membership following that watches them right away. We see 400 or 500 people that watch them right off the bat and then start sharing them. And then the rest of the reach, it comes over time. We find a lot of people going online that are, they search, what is Unitarianism? That's the top video that we've made as far as views. And it's just people searching in Google or in YouTube, what is this Unitarianism stuff? And I don't know what's causing people to do that. I hope it's a further reach of Unitarian ideas. The other part of the reach that I'd mention is we do spend some UCA dollars on advertising to push videos out where they're in people's path. And on average now, we're seeing somewhere between 10 and 20,000 people watch each video fully.
Wow.
So there's a bit of an outreach there too that's not native reach, but that's paid for through the UCA. And hopefully as the UCA grows, so can too the resources we've got to reach out to the Christian world and put this in their path. So it's something they can think about.
So is the What is Unitarianism, is that the highest viewed video that we have so far?
Yeah, I think so. I need to go back and double check, but I'm pretty sure. And it's consistent, like a few dozen, it's not high numbers of views, but a few dozen people a day watch that one.
Wow. That's so cool.
It's neat. It's paltry compared to, I see these other videos of somebody's cat that has tens of millions of views, and I'm like, okay, what are we doing here? But, to have a few dozen people a day get our definition of Unitarianism and explain that it's not Unitarian Universalism and get introduced to it.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's meaningful for something that's just us in our spare time doing what we can to volunteer and try and preserve this idea.
Wait a minute. We could put out a call for cute cat videos of Unitarians.
Mix them in.
Yeah, mix them right in.
Yeah.
And it would just start out the video. Origen felt that, falls off the table. Everybody laughs.
Be the first Justin Martyr video ever to go viral. Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be great. Well, if people haven't seen the videos, the YouTube channel, I'm going to put a link to it in our show notes so that they can go to the whole channel and see it. And we post those videos on the outward side of the Facebook group as well. The front, what do they call that? The public face of the...
Yeah, the official page, rather than the group that people join.
Yeah.
So if people will just like the official page or like one of the videos, they're likely to see the new ones as they're posted.
Yeah.
And then they can subscribe to YouTube as well, and YouTube will ding their phone and let them know that a new video comes out.
Cool. Well, Brandon, the content is fantastic. It's a lot of fun to watch, and I've been able to help sometimes with some of the scripts as well, and I've really enjoyed that.
Oh, man, it's great. And if people don't know, give it a month or two, there's one of Mark's scripts that's coming out, and you'll know because it's actually funny. So as opposed to the dry toast that normally we do. But it is worth mentioning, the scripts go through a lot of review, and there are a lot of people that are helping to make them solid. When I come up with a script that's boneheaded, and they can work it and forge it into something good. We can run it past our resident historians and resident theologians and say, okay, guys, where are the mistakes here? There's all these resources. I mean, look at all these church historians just on the board itself.
Yeah. Between
Sean Finnegan and Kegan Chandler, not very many early church history questions that you couldn't get a really good answer to. So
yeah,
it's fun to be in my seat and just try to condense all that knowledge into a 2-minute animated little cutesy video.
Right. Yeah, for the rest of us who aren't going to read the book. Well, fantastic. Thank you, Brandon. I appreciate you joining me today. As we go forward, these segments will be just short drop-in moments, probably just a few minutes to talk about a particular video. This one's a little bit longer because who is this Brandon fellow and why is he doing this? Now we'll get that picture in people's minds. So the next time you show up on the podcast, it will just be you and me talking. So the latest video, boom, and off we go and talk about it.
I love it. That sounds like fun. Looking forward to it.
Thank you, Brandon. I appreciate it very much.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Now, as promised, this is an audio presentation of the first of the 3 blunders.
3 blunders that led to the Trinity. Unitarian Christians argue that the Trinity is a doctrine that emerged long after the apostles died, evolving into existence over the centuries after the New Testament was written. Not only that, but we can offer an explanation of just how this evolution occurred. Here are 3 big theological mutations that leave us now in need of further reformation to roll back where Christianity went wrong on the identity of God. Blunder number 1. Creation by another God and a threat to monotheism. The influx of Gentile followers of Jesus in the first few centuries after his resurrection included influential intellectuals like Justin Martyr and Origen, men who had been schooled in the teachings of Plato, the famous Greek philosopher. Plato held that God could not create directly, but rather must use an intermediary builder he called the demiurge, a sort of subcontractor, because God was too transcendent to get his hands dirty himself. This demiurge was sometimes referred to as God's reason, the Greek word logos, by pre-Christian writers like Philo of Alexandria. So when men like Justin brought this demiurge idea with them to Christianity, it was pretty easy for them to read it into the first chapter of John's Gospel, where God's Logos becomes flesh in the man Jesus. These innovating Logos theologians were even comfortable saying that Christians now followed two gods, the one true God, the Father, and another lesser God beneath the first, this Logos. But this, from a biblical point of view, was a big mistake. Other Christians at the time protested that in the Bible, there is only one true God, and He takes all the credit for creating. No help required from someone else. Blunder number 2.
Oh, that's good. I'm looking forward to a few more series like this. Brandon, may I suggest the 3 Blinders, and then the grand finale, the 3 Blunders. Oh, this could be so good. I got some letters. PJ from Washington State writes, "Hi, Mark. Having recently come to believe as a biblical Unitarian, this podcast is timely and a good niche for humor. The Holy Hand Grenade reference, episode 20, really made me chuckle. I realized, here's a guy I could talk to. I want to applaud the effort you are making. I am encouraged, and my mood is somewhat lightened in the midst of a flipping worldview within my own life and relationships. Yahweh be praised, though. I don't consider the difficulty much compared with having the truth and living by it. May our Father bless you with an abundance of joy, knowing you're reaching a growing audience in deep need. Assumption, but with relative certainty. I leave you with my new CUTE acronym to keep the good fight in focus. CUTE, C-E-W-T, CUTE, combat error with truth. Maranatha, PJ. Ha, PJ, that's a clever acronym. I like it. If it was cute like cat videos, it might be more popular. Truth is tough work, because to pursue it well, we have to be humble enough to acknowledge that some of the error may be our own. Thanks for the note, PJ. Dan from Minnesota writes, "Hello, Mark. Wanted to let you know that a member contacted me through the contact functionality on the UCA website. What an awesome tool. I'm a 51-year-old who only came to faith less than a year ago. While I attended Catholic Mass quasi-regularly as a child, I never knew God. So I took a course called Knowing Jesus through the Billy Graham Evangelical Association. When I had to answer a question asking how we know Jesus is God, I got quite confused. I reached out to my brother and a friend of his. These guys are helping me on my faith journey. Their reply was something to the effect, 'We have a Unitarian on our hands.' This was a good thing. I truly appreciate your podcast and look forward to it each week when you are able and have time. Best, Dan." Dan, your note totally made my day. I'm thrilled to see the UCA membership contact feature working for you. Just a heads up, this UCA directory tool is something we've put a lot of energy into. Recently, we added an interactive map which is either joy or horror-inducing, depending on your inclination. You have to check that out if you haven't yet. UnitarianChristianAlliance.org. The internet has been around long enough that most of us have had the sad experience of finding a website with contact information, then trying to contact them, only to find out they really aren't there. Maybe they've gone out of business, moved away, whatever. The internet allows information to persist well beyond its useful life, and it's disappointing to reach out to someone only to wait and finally realize that it was a dead end. Old information. Ugh. One of the goals of the UCA board was that the directory always be useful. One way to ensure that is to let member profiles that have been neglected and ignored, to let them just go away. We've only been doing this for a little over a year, and I've already heard from folks who have tried reaching out through the UCA contact tool and got crickets, nothing in response. Is it because this other individual decided to not respond? Maybe. Or might it be this person has stopped participating, doesn't check their email, or maybe even died? Hard to say. We've determined to combat this problem with a system which sends you an email when you've not touched your profile in about a year. You'll be able to click a link, log in, and confirm the info is still correct, or update it if you've moved, or you want to update your profile description to let people know you now have a group of Unitarian friends who get together. Ha-ha! This mechanism is in its testing stage now. You won't have to do anything except respond to the email when you do finally get it. I'm sure many of you haven't logged into your UCA profile in some time. Yes, having to do that can be irritating, especially when you can't remember the password. It's been so long. We are convinced, though, that the value of the UCA directory is significantly higher when the people therein are real and engaged. Yes, it means some of our numbers will slowly vanish due to neglect, and that is sad. But just put yourself in the shoes of a new Unitarian Christian, still struggling to figure out what to do, juggling possible family disruptions as well as church disruptions, and they see another person just one city over. The joy! And now stay in their shoes as they send their 5th pleading note through the contact form on the website. Hey, I've written you a few times. I'd love to have coffee. I'm a nice guy, honest. See, if we didn't find a way to prevent stale, dead-end profiles, we'd have a system which disappointed rather than helped people. We can't do that. I appreciate you. I know you care, and I know that's why you listen and why you added your spot to the UCA map. Last week, I actually had a call with Dan from Minnesota. His joy at being contacted through the site was real. It was a great talk. Thank you for helping make this possible. That short promo I mentioned for this podcast, it'll be up in a moment. Just a super quick reminder. Leave me voice messages that I can play. The link is in the show notes and on podcast.unitarianchristianalliance.org. Follow us on Instagram, uca.podcast, or Twitter, @UCApodcast. And email me, podcast@unitarianchristianalliance.org. Maybe you'll have an idea for where to use the promo you're about to hear. May God bless you in your truth pursuits. I hope this podcast serves you well. The Unitarian Christian Alliance podcast, for those who recognize the Trinity is just a theory to explain God. We'd be fine, except not going along with the Trinity sometimes gets you treated like you have an oozing wound. So why not band together and have our own thing, right? And let's give it a podcast. Though Trinitarians should probably steer clear.
This isn't the podcast you're looking for.
It's not the podcast we're looking for.
Unitarian Christian Alliance.
Move along, move along.